Have you ever been called to something that is both beautiful, awesome, but also terrifying at the same time? That is the tension we are going to talk about today in our deep dive at Ocean View podcast.
Welcome to the Ocean View podcast, where we dive below the surface into tensions each of us face, navigating life, faith, and relationships.
Well, today with us, we have Kaleigh DeFreitas, our kids director, kids minister.
All the above.
All of the things. And we are going to talk about Kaleigh's adoption journey.
Yes.
Which is awesome. We've actually had, I feel like, several people bring it up or ask questions about it and talk about it. So we just thought, let's just do a podcast about it.
Yeah, it's very funny. Actually, when we were discussing the idea of the podcast, I was like, you bring up the adoption, and I've had several people come up to me recently and want to know more. So here's your more.
Here we are. You're going to deep dive into adoption.
That's right.
So we have Milo Man in our lives now, which we all know and love. He's like the church's baby. We've all claimed him.
Definitely.
He is epic, full of life and spunk, and we just absolutely love him for it. But for people that don't know that story, can you give us like a shortened version of how Milo came to us?
Yes. So, yeah, he was born in November of 2022, and I met him in December of 2022, and we began, when he was born, he began his NICU stay. I jumped in 2 weeks later, and February of 2023 is when he came home with us after almost a 3-month NICU journey. He was born premature at 28 weeks.
Wow. So much there. We'll deal with some of that later. But was adoption something that was like always on your heart, or did it just happen? How did you end up wanting to adopt?
Yeah, so I definitely have always loved children. I've known since I was very small that I wanted to work with kids for my life. I wanted to have kids in my family. And I think as a teenager growing up in youth camp, as it goes, you see entities like Compassion, for instance, come and talk about kids to sponsor, and you think, wow, there's kids in the world that don't have homes and families. And so, of course, I love that. I do have a sponsor child.
Me too.
Whom I love.
Yeah. Mine's in Kenya, actually.
Oh, yeah.
His name is Edgar.
Mine's in Haiti.
Oh.
So from that, I thought as a young teenager, I was like, oh, maybe I'll adopt from another country. And then I grew up and got a little bit wiser and older and realized, hey, adoption it's a big thing. It's a big decision. But there's also kids in our own backyard here in America, like probably in the city where you live currently, that need a home and a family for a variety of reasons. So I just felt at some point in my life, I think I would want to bring a child into my home through adoption. It was something I was very open about, and I knew, like, hey, this is going to be a part of my story. It's just that, God's timing of when and how and what that looked like. And, so I always knew that I probably wanted to have adoption as part of my family.
So talk us through, I know there's several different types of adoption, and you chose a private adoption.
Yes.
So explain kind of what that means.
So there's a lot of different ways that you can adopt. There is adopting, I would say, through a public entity like the state. There's fostering to adopt. There is children that are just ready to be adopted, that you don't have to foster them first. They're just already ready to be adopted. Typically, those kids are older. If you foster to adopt, you definitely could have a baby, but you could also have a variety of ages. But what we chose to do was called a private domestic infant adoption. So really the end goal was through a private agency, we were going to bring home a baby. Of course, they would tell you there's no guarantees that it is like,
newborn.
Right, newborn. Right. But that was kind of the path, that we had started walking. So that was just what seemed right for our family. And I think that everyone, needs to make the decision that's best for their family. But for us, we went through a private Christian organization, and we did an infant adoption domestically.
So, and I had several friends in Florida that walked the other journey, that they fostered to adopt and went through a Christian organization, and walked the the other side of it.
Yeah.
So there's many ways to
Many ways.
bring kids that need homes home. What do you think that people misunderstand about adoption?
I think that and myself included, you don't know what you don't know, right, until you're living it.
Right.
And I think there was a lot I didn't know about adoption. I thought, yay, we go to this agency, we say we want a baby, we go through some paperwork, and you get a baby.
Oh.
Wow, yay. That's not really how it happens. And I think it's a much bigger journey than that. I think what I would love to kind of shed light on and help people understand is that it's more than the child that comes into your home. It is the biological parents, it's their family, it's all encompassing, right? So we call it like the adoption triad, the adoptive parent, the child, and the biological parent. You together are one triad that is all connected. And so I think it's more than just bringing home a child, but it is, to me, truly being open to not only loving that child, but loving their family as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think that also is there's several types of adoption because
Right.
you have an open adoption.
Right.
Which means that you could have contact
Yes.
potentially with the birth family.
Right.
And then I do think there are some other adoptions that are actually closed. So
Yes.
like some of the ones that would be through the state would probably be closed adoptions.
Yeah, it could be.
Could be,
Depending on the
potentially.
situation.
Yeah.
And years ago, basically all adoptions were closed. And
Yes.
now research has come to show that it's actually the best option for the biological child, for the child, that it is an open adoption if they could have contact with their birth family.
Yeah. Yeah. So what finally made you say, okay, I'm going to do this? Like what in your life triggered that moment?
So it was actually 2020, which is a wild year, It's like, I feel like that's the year everyone's going to say, well, in 2020, this
Back in
happened.
2020.
Back in 2020. So at the beginning of the year, I, how some people say they might do, say, oh, what's your word for the year or your goal or New Year's resolution?
Yeah.
Well, we were at a friend's house and she was like, what are you guys expecting from God in this year? And, or like, do you have something, or what is your word, or what does that look like? And so I just began praying on it, like, Lord, what would you have for me? And I just felt like him whispering to me to be expectant. Just be expectant. And I said, okay, God, expectant for what?
For 2020.
Exactly. And then I'm like, hindsight, expectant for 2020. So it was just like, okay, if I'm expectant, I don't know what I'm expectant for, but I'm just going to wait on the Lord. And so I just began reading his word, just diving in deep into scripture and just saying, okay, every day, what is it? It's actually the first year I did the Bible recap with Tara Lee.
Okay.
So that was the year I started with Tara Lee Cobble. Shout out to you.
Yep.
And
You brought us Milo.
thank you, Tara Lee. No, just kidding. So we started. That was the first year I ever did the Bible recap, and I just began to just be like hungry for Him and what that looked like. Well, little did I know that March of 2020 would happen, and I felt like my world kind of flipped upside down, as I believe everyone else did, and things felt very out of control. And I thought, wow, God, like, we have no control. We have no one that we can truly rely on except you. So this is your story. Like, my life is yours. Whatever it is that you have for me, whatever you're telling me to be expectant of, I'm here for it. And somewhere along the line in the summer to the fall of that year, my oldest at that time was, I'm thinking back, doing math in my head. Hang on. 2.5.
Let's see, he was about 3, if I remember right.
Yeah. He had turned 2 in February of 2020. So yeah, he was about 2.5.
Okay.
And I thought, well, I think it would be a good time to consider growing a family. And if we were ever going to be open to adopting, who knows how long it would take. So we just began praying over that. Like, hey, what would that look like to grow our family through adoption or biologically, whatever the avenue was. So the Lord just made it very clear that it was to be adoption, that we just felt very clear that it was, hey, the path is adoption, and that's the next step for our family, to grow our family.
So why? Like, talk to me about that, because a lot of people land on adoption either struggling with infertility or so. What at this point made you think, instead of conceiving, no, let's go the adoption route? Like, what brought you there?
So a couple of things. One, we had not struggled with infertility, so I can't speak to that aspect of the journey. I sympathize greatly, with moms that struggle with that, or women that struggle with that and want to be a mom. And I had many friends that I met throughout the adoption process, whether it was attending a training together or going to Lifeline events, that they had struggled with infertility, and it brought them to adoption. I think for us, it was not that we couldn't conceive naturally, and not that we couldn't, but that I felt very strongly that I wanted my child to know one day, hey, I chose you. Like the Lord chose us, right, to be in his family. He didn't have to choose us. Jesus didn't have to die on the cross for our sins. That didn't have to happen.
Right.
But from the beginning of time, the Lord saw fit that we would have restoration and be in his family and have relationship with him, and he chose us in his family. So I always wanted to adopt, knowing and being able to say, hey, you're not mine biologically. You have what we call in our house a tummy mommy. That's what we refer to our birth mom as. You have a tummy mommy. But I am your mom, and you are chosen by us to be in our family, and that we can relate and say, hey, just like God chose us to be in his family, we have chosen you to be in our family. And so we just felt strongly that we wanted that for our family. And so we just said, hey, then walking the adoption path is the next step. And because we didn't know how long it was going to take, we figured, well, let's just start.
Yeah. So a lot of people feel drawn towards adoption, but their immediate response is like, oh gosh, I'm not at that place. Like I don't feel ready, or I'm not stable enough, or I'm not financially stable enough, or I'm not, spiritually stable enough. So did you wrestle with any of that as you started to make this decision?
Yeah, all of the above.
Oh, okay.
Similar to, because I was a parent, right? And I had walked the journey of no kids to kids, and you realize, wow, you're not ready for anything ever.
No,
you're never ready
You're
for
never
kids.
ready for
You're
kids.
never ready
Never.
for kids. You may think you're ready, but you're not. Trust me. So I think because I had experienced that in being a parent already, I knew, okay, number one, I'm never going to feel 100% ready.
Right.
But if
you did, you're not.
Exactly.
So.
And if it's what we're called to, if this is the step that we're going to take, let's just walk in obedience. So financially, that was definitely a big aspect. So what we did was we found out, so we were on staff here at the church, and I went to, actually, I don't know how I realized that Bethany Christian Services, we were already partnered with them as a church, but I basically said, okay, if this is an organization that our church partners with and they do adoptions, let's just go meet with one of the agents and see what they have to say. Because we knew nothing. So we were like, let's just go have a meeting and talk to them. So, I sent an email. They set up a meeting, and we heard about the finances. We heard about the time. We heard about the process. It is overwhelming, and they'll tell you, like, it could be 3 months. It could be 3 years. There's a financial ballpark. They say, I think right now the average private domestic infant adoption is somewhere in the range of like $25,000 to $35,000 on average. Now it could be less. I don't know that it could be less than that. Maybe it could, but definitely be more. And
there's grants.
There's grants, and that's the thing is, like, it can feel very scary when you hear about all of the aspects of adoption. But what I would never want to scare someone away.
Right.
If there are grants, there's crowdfunding, there are ways to raise money.
My friends did a garage sale.
I did too.
Like all of us brought stuff to them, and we all
Yes.
donated stuff.
Yep.
She had this massive garage sale, and that's one of the ways she funded her adoption.
We sold T-shirts.
Yeah.
I applied for every grant I could find, and my agency was so good to walk alongside and say, hey, here's a grant you can apply for. Here's an idea someone else has done. I mean, they walk you through all of it.
Yeah.
So that was another reason we loved having the private agency, because they walked with us almost like holding our hands step by step. Your caseworker, I mean, I love her dearly. I'm actually wound up with 2 different ones, and I love both of them so much. And so, so they walk you through everything. But yeah, it is a lot when you first hear it, but just kind of taking all that in and saying, okay, well, if you just take it one step at a time, it is doable.
So, talk to us a little bit about, I mean, a lot of us, maybe people aren't aware, but adoption can tend to be an emotional roller coaster because there's some really high highs
Yep.
and then there's some really low lows. So
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about the roller coaster that you experienced.
Yeah. So with
Just the adoption roller coaster.
Right.
We'll talk about other roller coasters later.
Yes, just adoption. I will just say, okay, so my disclaimer is this is for a private infant domestic adoption.
Right.
Every adoption is
It's
different.
different, yes.
Every single one. So a foster to adopt situation,
Very
completely
different, but also a roller coaster sometimes.
Huge roller coaster. But this is just the roller coaster I experienced.
Yeah.
So how adoption worked for us was at the very beginning, you go through a training, which I'm so thankful that our agency does that because, well, let me backtrack for just a second. We started with Bethany Christian Services. Part of the roller coaster was that very quickly found out that they were no longer going to be in South Carolina. And so we were not going to be able to be an adoptive family with them anymore. Well, so then we had to find a new agency. Through the Lord's grace and beautiful provision, we were brought to Lifeline Children's Services. So that became our adoption agent. So that was one roller coaster financially for various reasons. We lost money.
Yeah.
We had to start over. And a lot of the process that we had already done, we had to start over. So what happens is you create this photo book of your family and they help you do it and everything. But just think a Shutterfly photo book.
Yeah.
That's literally what I
Yeah.
used. And essentially what you're doing is when there is a mom who's interested in placing a child for adoption, you might receive what they call an info summary in your email. And it's not much information, but it might describe a little bit of the mom's situation, very anonymously. And if there's anything known about the baby in utero, or if the baby's already been born, in our case, Milo was already born, then they'll give you whatever description they can. At that point, you say, hey, do you want to be shown to this birth mom? And you elect yes or no, right?
Okay.
So for instance, if you know I only want to adopt a baby girl, well then you might be waiting a lot longer than others because you don't know what the info summaries are going to hold. We were open to almost anything and everything. So we saw dozens of info summaries, tons of info summaries. And most of the time it was a yes, we want to be shown. And almost all of the time it was a no from the mom.
Okay.
And so that was hard. Every single time it was hard because you think, I want to love this baby. I want to love this mom. Here I am. Here's my family.
Yeah. It's like you're opening your heart.
You're opening your heart to them. And then it comes back. You just don't hear anything. And I would wait for days to hear. And it's just that waiting period, the up and down of like, okay, I've sent our book in. No, nothing.
Yeah.
And then I'd be waiting, and then I'd reach out to my caseworker, and I'd say, anything? They went with someone else.
Yeah.
And so that was every time a small grieving process. And then one time, so pretty early on to our journey, a mom said yes. And we set up a meeting. It was over Zoom. She didn't come.
Oh, gosh.
So then I said, our caseworker was kind of like, we're not saying the door's closed forever. We're saying she didn't come to the meeting and we don't know what's going to happen. Well, then a couple weeks later, she comes back and she goes, oh, I'm really ready this time. And she doesn't come again. And I just said, okay, I don't know about all this. And that door was closed and nothing ever came to be with that mom. We never met her, never saw her, never heard from her again. Okay, so that was the first big letdown that we experienced. Then in 2022, that was in 2021. So so then almost a year, I kept, not daily journals, but so many journals throughout this process. And someone had told me that at the beginning, keep a journal in your process.
That's great.
And I'm so glad I did because God was in all the details, like times that phone calls would come, dates that things would happen. I mean, they would line up in crazy ways. And I would know, God, you're in this story because the numbers would align somehow and they would match and make sense. And I would be like, wow, God, like you're in this.
That's I'm going to pause for a second because that is such a key thing. I feel like for any takeaway for any of us,
Yeah.
because like if you journal, you can see prayers answered.
Yes.
You can see, you know, I love that. And especially for a journey like this, where there are such fantastic highs
Yep.
and really low lows, you can see where God immediately,
Met
or a
it.
little bit further down the
Right.
line, you can see how he answered things. So
Exactly.
such an important part to really any journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say, because it is a roller coaster, that helped keep me, you know, afloat
Yeah.
on some days,
Yeah.
because all it would, you know, I would just go back through tears, and I would go back and I would reread old pages of the journal. I'd be like, okay, God met me here.
Yeah.
You know how in the Old Testament they would create
The stones.
They would stack
Yeah.
the stones. That's what I felt like I was doing. My
Yeah.
journal was my stones.
Yes.
That's how I would know, okay, God, you met me here in this moment, so I can rely on that.
Yeah.
So that was 2021 when that first birth mom didn't work out. Then in 2022, we found out about a sweet birth mom who did not think she was going to be able to raise her child. Unexpected pregnancy, I would say truly crisis pregnancy.
Yeah.
And where we open. And I was like, definitely open. So she chose us. She saw our photo book. She said yes. We said yes. And so the next step was, let's meet. We'd love for y'all to meet. So we drove to Alabama, and I don't know, 8 or 10 hours, something. We went to meet the mom. Her parents were also there. They didn't speak English, so we had a translator. It was a beautiful experience. We were told in the info summary it was a baby boy. We were there. My heart had always wanted a baby girl. And so we were told it was a baby boy. I was like, no worries. We don't care about gender.
Yeah.
We were meeting, we were talking, getting to know each other. It was awesome. And somehow in the conversation, she called the baby a girl. And we were like, what did you say? And we asked the translator to ask her to explain it. And they said, oh yeah, it's a baby girl. And I mean, my heart stopped, and I was like, Lord, you're gifting me what my heart's desire is, this baby girl. Like, you're gifting me this baby girl. I was elated. Okay. So that was, I think, October. She was about a month away from her due date, maybe a month and a half. She was due the week of Thanksgiving. We had already basically canceled all of our Thanksgiving plans for that year. Cause I mean, truthfully, I had already written the story. It was like a movie playing in my head, and I could already see the end. This was my baby.
Yeah.
We were going to love this family. They were going to be our family. We were going to have relationship with them forever. This was the perfect adoption journey. This was everything I had pictured it to be, and it was going to be perfect. And we left and drove home on cloud 9. We were ready to start gathering the baby girl clothes. We were going to go home and make the room. I mean, this was our baby.
Yeah.
We were talking names. We were doing it all.
And you're a month away.
We were a month away, about a month away from her due date. And 2 weeks go by, and it was not unusual to not hear anything from anyone, because there was nothing to know except that when the baby would come, we would jump in the car, we'd be ready. I mean, we were making plans. What was it going to be like for our firstborn? Who was going to come be with him? That kind of thing. And about 2 weeks go by, and my caseworker texts me and says, we need to talk.
Oh, gosh.
And I was like, okay, cool, whatever, be bopping along. And she says, let's just why don't you guys sit down? And we were on the phone, and I said, okay. And she was like, her family wants to raise the baby, and they're not going to place for adoption. And it, everything inside of me broke.
Yeah.
And I remember that day very vividly. I was here at the office.
I remember that day, actually.
Yeah. And I was not, I no real thoughts. I just sat on the phone and listened. And she said, do you want to say anything? And I said, nope. And I hung up the phone and I ran. And Aaron was right next door in the office. And he just kind of walked over and he said, it's not good. Nope, not good. And he said, just go. And I literally just ran and cried. I mean, my whole life, that was my baby, and it was planned out in my head, and I knew that was my baby. And it was gone in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest thing I had walked through up to that point in the journey. My caseworker was so sweet. She gave me time to grieve. They asked if we wanted us to stop the process, if we didn't have to keep going if we didn't want to. If we needed to put a pause on it, we could put a pause on it. she said, I'll contact you. I'll get you in contact with other adoptive moms that have walked this similar path. And I said, okay, thinking, what does it matter? I did end up talking with another adoptive mom who had a very similar situation, and it truly like gave me life back, because I was like, hey, you're not alone in this. This has happened to other people, which obviously but you feel like you're alone.
Yeah.
And
When you're grieving it's almost like you're grieving a death, and it's the death of
what you
thought, you know, and it's you're grieving a child that you aren't going to hold now. You know, like it's a hard thing.
It was a very hard thing. And thankfully I was in counseling. We were in counseling at the time, throughout the whole process, which again, like, be in counseling.
Highly recommend.
Highly recommend. 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
But my counselor said, you saw the whole story. You could see her in your family. And I said, I knew it. I could see it all. And he said, well, you're grieving that loss now of what you thought was. And so I did. I had to grieve that loss. And my agent said, you tell me when you're ready. And it wasn't long. I said, I know we were called to this. And I just know that if it wasn't her, it's somebody. So what that looks like, I don't know. And I think that was when I like truly, truly surrendered and said, Lord, I am not in control. I can't pretend to know what's going to happen. You brought us here. I guess you're just going to see us through, or you won't. And I don't know. Like, I don't know what it's going to be. And
he will always see you
He'll
through.
always see me through, but I didn't know if it was going to be adoption. I was like,
Yes.
maybe it's not adoption. I don't know at this point.
Maybe you're shutting the store.
Yeah. But, so then it was, I think, December 6th. If I had my journal, which I should have brought with me, it's right there. I think it was December 6th after that same year that we found out, we received Milo's info summary. I don't even think his name, we didn't know what we would name him at that time, but it was his info summary. And I just remember reading it and thinking and like knowing, like without a doubt, this is my baby. I just knew it. Something in my heart opened, unlocked, it clicked. I was just like, this is my baby. So he was already born and he was relatively close to us. And so I just said, whatever it is, I want you to show us this. I want you to show our profile of this mom.
Yeah. But pause for a second. Tell us the God wink
of
his birthday.
So here's our God wink. So the baby girl that we thought we were going to bring home was due around Thanksgiving. Fast forward to December. Now a little bit of time has passed. And on the info summary, it said that he was born on November 24th, which was Thanksgiving Day of that year, 2022.
Yeah.
So the whole time, my baby was born on Thanksgiving.
That's so cool. What do you think that through all of this, what did trusting God look like through all of this uncertainty and pain through that journey? What did trusting God look like for you?
I think it was just, I'm the type of person I like to be in control. If you know me, you know that's true. You know me, Tori.
Yeah, we both do that. We like to be safe.
We like to be safe, and safety is found in control.
Yes.
So
and adoption journeys are
not
not
it.
safe. They're wild. And
That's wild.
Creative and fun, but not safe.
Not safe. So I think that was really what it was the whole time. It was like over and over again, the Lord saying, hey, I've got this. You don't have this. You're not in control. And I think ultimately my adoption journey was very hard. Then I had a 20-week-old premature baby. That was very hard, a NICU stay, which is it's its own roller coaster.
Yeah.
So the adoption journey was a roller coaster. Then you go to the NICU and you have a NICU journey for 2.5, almost 3 months. That was an up and down roller coaster in and of itself. And then fast forward, I became a single mom going through adoption. And so every step of the journey was just preparing me for the next step. And I had no idea. But hindsight is when I felt like the adoption journey was too hard, something harder was coming. When I felt like the NICU journey was too hard, something harder was coming. But through all of the hard, God was there the whole time saying, I don't know how many times I have to keep reminding you, but I'm in control and you're not. And I was like, okay, God, I got you. I got it. Let's be done with this now. I got it. And so I think it's just that, learning to just trust and just rely on him.
And I think I'll still go back to, I think one of your keys was being able to physically write it down and look at it.
Yeah.
And then going back to seeing those rocks that you put.
Absolutely.
To remind you of, nope, he had me there.
Yep.
So he's going to have me here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so you just mentioned it, but let's kind of tackle the elephant in the room. Halfway through this adoption journey, which kind of compounded everything that you just described, was the fact that you became a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's an amazingly unexpected turn for all of it. How do you feel like God met you in those moments of, I mean, that's major overwhelm. Now everything's been upset. So where did God meet you in those moments?
I mean, literally in every moment.
Yeah.
So it was
Hanging by a thread.
Hanging by a thread in every moment. But it was every aspect. It was financially, it was physically, it was emotionally, spiritually. And I think the easiest thing I can say and the biggest way that he met me more than like spiritually in my relationship with him is that through my church community, right? Through you guys, through Ocean View, through the family here. When I say like Ocean View is family, Ocean View is truly family. When we say like Milo's Ocean View's baby, it's like Ocean View said, hey, you're not just adopting him, we're all adopting him. Because it took a village, right? Mm-hmm. That there's never, I don't think there's a more true statement than it takes a village to raise kids, no matter what your life situation is. But definitely, when you are a single mom. So for me, that was, people filled my freezer with frozen meals that I could just take out at any time. Financially, people stepped up in ways that I never could have imagined. Throughout the rest of the process, friends just opening their homes and their lives when they didn't know that was going to happen, but they said, hey, it's basically like, now we've adopted your whole family.
You.
You're adopting you.
Kaleigh, you are now adopted.
We used to jokingly say that that Aaron and Whitney adopted me.
Yes.
That I am
You're
also
the fourth
adoptee.
child.
Yeah, I am the adoptee. So yeah, it's just, I think that how the community showed up, and I think that was just a true picture of Jesus and his grace and mercy and love. Because if you ever think the church is called to be the hands and feet, the church was the hands and feet.
Yeah. And it's something beautiful that I think our church does really well. Yeah. Is we come alongside. Yep. And it's beautiful to watch our community in action.
Yeah. When I began the journey of adoption as a single mom, Milo was already in my care, and it was very, stressful, right? As I think anyone could probably imagine. Yeah. It was very stressful. Yeah. I had a young child and a medically fragile baby out of the NICU. But he showed up through my church community, and he showed up through my family and my friends. And I had other friends walking hard things at the same time, and we would be awake in the middle of the night at the same time, and we would be texting each other. And we said, we're each other's midnight call. And just the support system that came around us and just provided for my family and just me in all the ways, financially, emotionally, whatever I needed. Whatever you would call food, providing with food. Yes. That was a big thing. That was a big thing that I needed. And so just how he used our Ocean View family, the community around me, to just really hold us up and carry us through, that was the way I think he just showed me, hey, no matter what, I've got you, and we're going to get through this. And we did.
What would you say to somebody that was maybe single that's listening and assuming adoption isn't possible for them?
I would just say it's possible for anybody. I actually, long before I ever adopted, I knew several friends that they didn't have significant others, and they began, some of them fostering, some of them straight to adoption, but just began saying, hey, I have a home that I can offer a child. What does that look like? And some of them with the intent, most of them that I knew with the intent to adopt. And so I think it is possible, number one. And number two, I just know that in those moments where you feel like, hey, I don't know if I can do this, but if you believe that God has placed that on your heart, he will make a way. Yeah. Don't push down those feelings and that calling. There are so many kids that need us in the country and in the world. So if you feel that in your heart, I would just encourage you to at least explore it.
Yeah, that's great. So let's change gears a little bit. You have the unique perspective of raising a baby that went through the NICU process.
Mm-hmm.
So what encouragement, let's start with what encouragement would you give to parents that are currently in that phase? What's something that you would say to encourage them?
It does end. I promise. I think if you can find others that have gone through the NICU journey, the Lord was so sweet to always, it felt like he always had someone come into my life that was further along than
great.
I was on that journey.
Yeah.
So I'm a NICU mom. If you need me, I'm here. But no, I think it's just that it is a very lonely feeling when you go to hold a baby and you're just sitting in a hospital, a cold, sterile hospital room, probably with no windows, because most of the time you wouldn't have that. Sometimes you don't even have your own room. And you're just holding this little baby that you know is so fragile but needs you. It is just a daunting experience. It is a roller coaster. It's up and down. But the nurses that provide care, they will become your friends, your angels, your lifeline. I still talk to my NICU nurse to this day. She was incredible. I mean, she let me cry to her. She held me. She kept me up to date with everything. But I would just say, who can you use as support in that time?
Yeah.
I believe the Lord will bring you people.
Yeah. What do you feel like God taught you through that season that you wouldn't have learned otherwise?
A lot of the not in control, a lot of that still, it continued long after we met Milo. It was still continuing and then even more after that. But just that he is truly the great physician, and every single day in the NICU can look different. And so one day you can be on a high of like, your child's doing great and he or she making this excellent progress. And then the next day you're like, well, we've had a setback. And you're like, what? But the fact,
how many times did you say that? We had a setback today.
We had a setback. Yes. I know. I would be like, oh, the up and down. But no matter what, he was in it all, and he is truly the great physician. And now I wish you could see a picture of like before and after.
Yeah.
If you saw Milo with all the tubes and the breathing equipment and all the apparatuses he had to have, the box he lived in for so long, to the 3.5-year-old today who is the most energetic, spunkiest, most wild man I know, you would not believe it.
I know it is amazing.
Yeah.
So, and again, I was also a preemie. So yes. So giving hope to those that are, I turned out, I think, okay. I don't know,
I think you guys are great. Preemies for life.
Yes, for sure. So going to just the amazing gospel implications that we are all adopted, into God's family, and that, Milo was chosen.
Right.
I love those implications. How has it deepened your understanding in God's love for us?
Yeah. Well, I thought when I had Lucas, my firstborn, and I was like, wow, if I love this small baby so much, how could God love me even more? Because I know he does, right?
Yeah,
so that experience, I thought, wow, how could I understand God's love even more? And when I met Milo and adopted him, truly could not explain to somebody else the love that I have for a child that didn't come from me is different.
Yeah.
And so powerful, because when you have a child biologically, it's innate, right? Like, wow.
You have hormones that are happening.
Hormones,
you have bonding things that are happening.
Right, bonding things. And I was nervous about adopting, that I wouldn't have that same experience, because I had that with a biological child, and I was nervous with adoption that maybe what if I don't feel that bond? I mean, it was the moment I walked into Milo's hospital room for the first time. I don't even know if we knew we were going to call him Milo yet. And I knew this was my child. In fact, I'll even say that when I read the description of him and all it said was baby boy, 28 weeks, NICU, I was like, that's my baby.
Oh.
And I don't even know how I knew that, but I just knew this is my baby. And meeting him, that love of like, hey, no matter what, buddy, you are ours forever. You are chosen. forever, to the end of time. Nothing he can do could ever change my mind. And that's where I think, for the love of Christ, God knows us so well. We are his, and he chose to have a relationship with us. He chose to bring us into his family. Jesus didn't have to die on a cross for us. He chose that.
Right.
And I will say forever that I chose Milo to be in our family. And not even that I chose it, but I think God chose it.
Yeah.
That he chose it for us to say, hey, this is your child. And I just think that was a powerful, thing that I learned of, like, wow, I love this child so much, and he didn't come from me. And I love his mom.
Yeah.
And his dad, I love his parents that are truly his biological parents. And that's something I'll always try to tell them and let them know as well.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I remember, so I worked with some of the girls that I worked with back in the day, were adopted and would struggle with it a little bit as teenagers,
Right.
just because of other circumstances. But I just remember talking to them about it and saying, I didn't choose my child. Like, he was chosen for me. God
Right.
chose him for me, but you were chosen.
Right.
You were specifically chosen by your parents. And
Right.
that is such a unique gift that adoption brings.
Right. And I would never speak for an adoptee, right? That, like, I don't know what struggles could happen in the future. I know
Right.
a lot of adoptees as adults and older, and I'll never know their internal struggle of
Right.
what they go through having been adopted. But I'll know that every day I'll make sure, Milo knows, like, no matter what, you were chosen.
Yeah, right. So let's just go, just some practical questions. What's something that you wish someone had told you before starting the process? Like, your hindsight's 2020. Like,
Yeah,
what is
hindsight's 2020.
what's something that you wish somebody had told you?
There's so many things.
Just pick one.
Yeah. I think that I think what I wish I understood a little bit more, and again, I don't think until you get into it, so that's okay, but I'll tell you now. It's more than just bringing a child into your home. So for me, it was like, hey, I am going to bring a baby into my home, and this is how we're going to grow our family. But it's so much more than that. I think it is not only that child that your life is intersecting with, but their birth parents and or other members of their family. And so I think it's really remembering you're not just saying yes to a child. You are truly saying yes to their journey, their story, and their biological family too. And what my adoption agency, which I haven't said this yet, so I'll say this. It was Bethany Christian Services. It had to take an unexpected change. I had a much longer adoption than most people, so please do not be scared by my timeline. That's not normal.
Yours is a very long time.
I have a very long timeline. Don't be scared by that. I unexpectedly had to have a new adoption agency, which, again, the Lord in it all. But Lifeline Children's Services is our agent, who we went through. And so what they are so passionate about, which I love, is called open adoption. And it's that you would come to the adoption table being open, that you would want and have a relationship with the adoptive or the biological family. And so I would just consider that I didn't really know much about that.
Yeah.
So I love that.
So how has that been? Like, what does that mean for you in that journey?
So right now, every adoption's a journey.
Yep.
And this is just where our story is right now.
Yeah.
We don't have any contact with our biological parent, with his biological parents, but super open to it. I think, what it is for our agency, they do such a beautiful job of, I can send anything, and the correspondence will then be sent on.
That's great.
So they're happy to be that middleman or that holding place.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
That's great. If someone feels like God is nudging them, just even listening to you talk, if somebody's feeling like God is nudging them even today listening, what is the small first step? Like you said that, take the first step. What is that small first step that they should take?
I think there's a lot of first steps you can take. I think one very easy thing is you can just attend an adoption informational meeting.
Okay.
Personally, for what I know,
Where does one find one?
Yes, that's what what I'd like to say. Personally, this is what I'd like to let you know. So our church does partner with Lifeline Children's Services. So they are very good about hosting informational meetings online.
Okay.
maybe not monthly, but maybe every other month. It's very often. And even in person, if you wanted something like that, I'm happy to help connect people. They also have a Facebook page where they post all their information, and websites where they keep everything up to date, and you can be on their mailing. You could subscribe to their email list. That's one step. That's an easy step.
There you go.
Subscribe to their email list, and then you'll find out when they have informational meetings. But if you just heard information, then that, I would say, the first step. And maybe for some people, you don't necessarily think a private agency is the way for your family, and that's okay too. You can definitely adopt through the state.
Okay. So if you are listening and you don't feel called for adoption, but we talked about what an amazing support system you had. What is one way, if I'm not called to adoption, I can support an adoptive family, or like Lifeline?
Yeah, I love that you asked me that.
Yeah.
So I love that we work with Lifeline Children's Services. Our church is partner of them. We work very closely with them. So through Lifeline alone, there's lots of ways people can get involved with specifically them, but in a broader sense, there's lots of avenues that people can support adoptive and can I expand it? Foster families, biological families. So a simple thing is, number one, if you know anyone that fosters or adopts, just support their family.
Yeah.
Like, love them, and whatever that looks like. I had somebody fill my freezer with frozen meals.
It's amazing.
I couldn't cook. I have learned.
You've come a long way.
I've come a long way. I'm learning. My husband says I cook very well. My parents laugh when he says that, but I think it's very kind
You've
of them.
come a long way.
I've come a long way.
You've learned a lot.
So one thing is, like, I had people put meals in my freezer. Okay, that's huge.
Yeah.
When you're in the thick of adoption, fostering, whatever that looks like, that you may, let me just say this. The Bible calls us to care for the widow and the orphan, right? So whatever version of that you believe you can care for, I would just say do it.
Yeah.
If it's financially, if it is taking them meals, if it is helping someone who has a foster child and they don't have the right size clothes or toys or shoes, donate.
Yep.
There are entities in our county that collect all sorts of items, baby stuff for kids, and all they do is give it away for free to foster and adoptive families, and more than that, even beyond that, biological parents who are, maybe their kids are in the system or have been brought out of the system, and they also need support. So just, there are lots of entities in our county where you can donate things that you're willing to part with, and it truly blesses somebody else.
Like, I think about, a lot of us, our kids outgrow clothes, or they outgrow toys,
so
and
fast.
You can easily find a family to partner with to
Absolutely.
give, that's the step below you or whatever, to take your old toys or your clothes that are in good shape. I will have to add in, no stains, please. And then partner with them versus just dropping them at Goodwill.
That's right. And I think too, just to add to that, specifically Lifeline Children's Services they do so much in our area, all throughout. They work with biological families, adoptive families, foster families. And so, can I just do a shameless plug?
100%.
Okay. So one thing that one way we support them at Ocean View is through Families Count, right? So everything they do is so close to my heart. And one thing that we do here is we support biological families who are trying to keep their children in their homes or bring them back into their homes.
So these are people that have, by biological families, you mean that people who have their children either taken away because of choices that they've made or other reasons.
Right.
And they
could be.
And so they're having to walk through steps to either keep their children in their home or get their children back into their home.
Right.
Yes.
So if you want to know more about Families Count, email me.
It's an awesome program.
It's great.
Yeah, it's amazing. So if you were to say just one thing, if we could wrap up this, saying one thing to somebody looking at adopting, what would that one thing be?
It is hard, but it's worth it.
It's 100% worth it.
It is so worth it. I would not change any of it. So many people have asked me, would you change anything? Would you do it again? I can't say 100% I would do it again. I don't know. The Lord can tell me whatever he wants me to do. At this point, I'm like, Lord, you writing the story, and I don't know. I'm just along for the ride. My life has been nothing I would have imagined, so you got it, God.
But amazing.
Amazing. So amazing. So I'm just like, all right, God, you're in this. You got it. But I would just say, go in with eyes wide open. Mm-hmm. It is probably harder than you imagine. There's probably more to it than you're thinking of right now. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
And amazing.
And amazing. And so worth it. Nothing could change how thankful I am to have Milo in our family. Yeah. Nothing could have ever changed that. No matter how hard it felt at times, no matter how lonely it felt or scary, he is worth it 1,000,000%. And guess what? The journey's not even over.
No.
Now we just uncover the next pieces of his puzzle, and it's still worth it.
It's awesome. Yep. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us today for this episode of Deep Dive. And we hope that you like and subscribe so that you are alerted whenever a new podcast drops. Thanks. Hope you have a great day.
Oh,